All right, turning now to Mackinac Island, it is that time of year when business leaders, politicians, educators, and entrepreneurs head north for the Detroit Regional Chamber's Mackinac Policy Conference. As always, Detroit Public Television will be carrying the entire conference live so you can get an idea of what the conversations are surrounding Michigan's future. The Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island is the hub for the 2015 Mackinac Policy Conference. More than 1,500 of the state's top leaders in business, education, politics, and foundations will be here starting next week to talk about ways to move Michigan forward. This year, focus will be on job training and education, as well as economic growth and urban revitalization.
So we have three pillars at this year's conference: talent, urban revitalization, and one Michigan voice. Sense of cohesion. And so cohesion is really the thread that runs across the pillars. How do we speak as one Michigan voice? How do we unite east to west, urban and non-urban? How do we function and operate and speak together as we project ourselves to the world?
Heading into the policy conference this year, Michigan is in a very different place. Detroit is out of bankruptcy and without an emergency manager. Mayor Mike Duggan is leading the charge in the city to energize business downtown, as well as fight blight and restore the city's many neighborhoods. Governor Rick Snyder won another 4 years in office, but is fighting to find another way, along with the legislature, to finance and fix Michigan's roads. Unemployment numbers are slowly dropping, business investment is growing, but there is also increasing focus on education, how we're teaching our kids statewide, and what reforms do we need in struggling districts like Detroit. All of this sets up quite a conversation at the Mackinac Policy Conference this year, the ultimate place for people who can enact change in this state to come together and focus on Michigan's future.
Let's talk, let's have a conversation, and let's really look forward as to where the state is going. When you look at some of the big accomplishments that this state has had over the last handful of years, the new international trade crossing, the grand bargain for Detroit, changing Michigan's tax structure, the Regional Transit Authority in Southeast Michigan, all of those ideas were incubated and advanced at the Mackinac Policy Conference and are now reality.
Well, there's obviously lots to talk about at this year's policy conference, and this is the 5th year that Detroit Public TV is going to be carrying the conference live, and the three of us will be up here. So a very different mood this year. I mean, again, these last 5 years have been very interesting up there. You've seen the momentum kind of change and build. What's your thoughts going into the conference, Noel?
Well, you know, I think this is a different year. I mean, up for most of the time that I've been going up there, which is a lot of years, we've been talking, the focus was always on what do we got to do to fix Michigan's problems. And, you know, over the last couple, 3 years, we've done a lot of the things that the conference had talked about over those years. And I think there's a feeling this time of switching the conversation to say, how can we exploit the changes we've put in place, both at the state level and at the city level? How do we take advantage of this moment?
What do you think, Stephen?
I mean, I think there's no question the conference occupies a much more prominent space than it used to, not just locally, but nationally. You think about the names who will be there this week: Doris Kearns Goodwin, Eugene Robinson, Nate Silver, and these are people who wanted to come to Mackinac because they'd heard about you know, what goes on there. That's something that 5-10 years ago you wouldn't have seen. One interesting thing I think different this year is both Nolan and I are moderating panels about race, and race both in terms of Southeast Michigan and Detroit and sort of the broader issue. That's a new kind of issue. We've done that before up on Mackinac, but it's sort of slipped away.
It's been 11 years. I had a column about that today in the Detroit News. Race is on the agenda for the first time in a real way since 2004 when Devin Scillian and Emery King had their sort of conversation on race. And we've really avoided it over the last decade because, you know, there was a feeling it didn't go anywhere. And I'll give Mark Davidoff credit and Sandy Barua. This year they took a look at what's going around the country and said, you know, we can't be blind to what's happening in other communities. Nobody wants to see something like that happen here because, believe me, it would set Detroit back way farther than it's going to set Baltimore or what have you, and they're addressing it head on.
And I think it's really interesting, and I think you really can't underestimate the fact that you have everyone in the state of Michigan who can enact, who have the power to enact major change, all up in one place for 3 days. And people say, well, what are they all doing up there? And that's part of the reason why that we broadcast it, to make sure that people can actually see the conversation and hear what people are talking about. But knowing that things actually do come out of this conference and conversations that can be game changers, Steve.
Yeah, no, there's no question. I mean, there's a lot of rock throwing that goes on at the chamber about, well, you get all these elites up there and they're just hanging around and riding carriages and things like that. But there's a lot of work that gets done on the island, and if for no other reason than just as you said, that you have all of these decision makers from business, from politics together for 3 days, all kinds of things are possible. There are conversations that take place that wouldn't otherwise, and there are decisions that can get made. And a topic like race, where this is a group of people who I think a lot of people are rightfully saying have been detached from the conversation, it means something to have all of those decision makers talking about that at one time. Now, what comes out of it, we'll have to wait and see. But it's a step forward to say this is on the agenda this year.
And it's not a policy-making session. This isn't a taxpayer funding deal, and it's not these aren't necessarily the place where policy gets made. If people wanted to go up there and do nothing but stand around on the porch and socialize, they're paying the money. It's their business. But so much more than that gets done. You do have a lot of side conversations, a lot of people getting together who might not otherwise do so, and talking about solutions. And over the years, this conference has produced a lot of good ideas for solving Michigan's problems.
Well, and we are looking forward to it. In addition to our live daily coverage of the policy conference next week, be sure to tune in Wednesday through Friday at 7:30 at night for a special My Vote Mackinac show. We will have interviews with special guests and provide a wrap-up of the day's events. And Stephen and Nolan will be there.